Danno was cloned. Well, let's talk about that real quick. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Well, how did we get here? Throughout the whole Shortwars Season 1 and 2 so far, Danno has been one of the few creators who have not been cloned by the boss alongside Joe Kane. Well, sadly, Joe Kane has been tricked due to a fake Genshin Impact sponsorship, also bringing Mundan along with him to get cloned again. This is why you shouldn't trust Genshin Impact sponsorships, Kane. Because of this, it made leaving Danno as the only surviving member of the original cast not to be cloned, if you minus Johnny, but that's for another video. Well, throughout the days, we have seen Riggy and Danno be more suspicious of his friends after investigating their stream. For example, Johnny, where he notices the boss has a red flannel, mask, and shorts similar to Johnny. But to Danno, he tried his best to see the best in people and was hoping to be wrong about Johnny being the boss. Riggy, on the other hand, has been through hell the past few weeks. After weeks of hinting that Clone Riggy returned, he finally did, and he was ready for a rematch against Riggy. But instead of a fair fight, Clone Riggy immediately knocked out Riggy with an anvil, giving him a concussion as Danno was getting a cookie. As a cartoon character, you think that him living a black hole and crashing a car was enough to live, but an anvil is the thing to take him out. Once Danno returned, he sees Riggy knocked down and calls for his girlfriend Rosie to pick him up and take him to the hospital. And also realizing that Riggy has failed to do his job to see if there's any issue when he uploads a shirt, he discovers that Clone Riggy has unfortunately returned. Danno continues to do his job without Riggy by doing shorts without him and getting Rosie to help, but also she went out to hunt down Clone Riggy for putting Riggy in the hospital. Throughout this time, Riggy has a very bad concussion and has been calling Danno when he was making videos and referring to Clone Riggy as Pasta Man. Eventually, Riggy returns to the channel to help out Danno. While this is happening, the boss is making shorts and continuing to make Sigma posts and reaction sniper wolf content. And a new contender has entered the ring, and that's C.com. Now let's fast forward a week to a live from Failur's channel, and that was Clone Riggy's new name. Most of the stream was just Fortnite content. Around the 2-hour mark at the end of the stream, we see Clone Riggy trying to look for a new name and how he hated the community was calling him Pasta Man. And around the end of the stream, Clone Riggy picks his new name. Was it a cool name like Dexter, Lucius, Vito? Actually, no cool villain name. He decides to call himself Failur's name, and it was, drumroll please, Preston. Clone Riggy decides to pick the name Preston. Truthfully, Pasta Man would have been a better name. But what does this have to do with Danno being cloned? Well, with Preston now having his new identity, he needed to get a hold of Danno's channel, and he needed an opportunity to do so. But then he noticed an opportunity. In an Among Us stream a few days later, with most of the Shortwars people there and some theorists, such as Reggie, Mello, and Dacia, at the end of the stream, Danno covers up the camera, but is not his mic. And we hear him on a phone call about going out to a venture to look for something. And he's bringing Royal Pear with him, considering the height he is describing, and he could easily punt him across the yard. And he left Riggy in charge of the channel. Then the stream ends. Which leads us to today, and one of the most recent shorts, we see that Danno's back. Wait a minute, this isn't Danno, it's a clone! And Riggy quickly caught on and noticed he is a clone. As a failsafe, Jano, Banno, or whatever the heck the canonical name is, knocked out Riggy and buried him. Not once, but twice. And then on the second time, crushed him and buried him again. Then Preston came around and saw that he knocked out Riggy, and noticed how bad the clone was doing his job. And his hair looks terrible, and his nose. And because of this, Preston is taking over the channel with Clone Danno as his lackey, until Riggy fully recovers and Danno returns. And now the question is how was Danno cloned? Well, we know what happened. Danno was taken by static because Pear and Danno went on an adventure to find the boss's control room, this place from season 1, and both were sucked into the machine and now trapped. Now, with this new temporary duo, what is the plan for the channel? What is the boss's plan? Well, until we find out, Shortwars is ramping up, and the end could be the beginning or the start could be the end. Until then, everybody, goodbye.